Hey guys, me again, and welcome back to another devlog, and it is the last devlog as well, because we finished production. So, after today is the hand-in date for production, so we've got a week left after this, and that's for a time to evaluate and catch up with annotations, make sure all our unit work is done, and all the boring side of the project to get that finished now. So, yeah, today we needed to hand in our work, so I am in the process of packaging and building my game now, in the background of recording this devlog. So I thought I'd quickly go over the last additions and changes to the game. So obviously where we left off was I was mostly finished with the radioactive level design. It hasn't changed too much because of time restraints, but it still works, it's still functional. So after that, because I wanted to make it almost a boss arena, I made this huge slime slug thing who is severely overpowered and huge with a lot of health. So because I wanted him to feel more of a boss than the humanoid in the last level, I nerfed him, so his health is now 500, so it's actually more dealable in that, within the area of house, because house is obviously a smaller area anyway, and also makes this boss seem like the end boss, which is what I wanted it, which it is basically. So I took the time in Blender to design and make him sort of smooth, and use the UV editing to adjust all the lines and stuff, so you can see it goes, all the lines sort of follow the same pattern. And yeah, I wanted it to almost feel like a goo monster, so I just gave it a really big mouth, because it's like, what else could I really do with the character? So that's its attack, and it does 50 attack damage, so it really does pack a punch. So there's acid spots on the ground, but now only do 5 damage, but still, if you combine the damage, you could get really quite low health, and it's quite difficult. So we'll see how that goes. So the main part of this level is that you get trolled into thinking that you're going to get the key without having to deal with the boss, but you have to fight the boss because you go straight through the floor. So I needed to make it so there is actually an alternate path that you can take to get the key, but that was only possible so when, how do I explain it? So when the boss dies, I wanted a big cube to disappear, essentially. So then it unlocks a path to actually get the key properly this time. So to do this, it was quite a simple blueprint. It took a while, but once I got my head around it, it was fine. I didn't use any tutorials for it. But I originally tried to create a variable that made it so when every event tick, the boss is set to alive. Sorry, no, event begin play, the boss was set to alive in its own blueprint. And then it would set the variable to true when it does die, and then I would cast to the block and do it that way. But I couldn't get that to work, so in the end I eventually went into the block itself and made it a blueprint. So then every tick of the game, it gets all the actors of the enemy class, because there's only one enemy in the map, and if it equals 0, then it destroys the cube. So when the boss dies, it destroys. So it was actually quite simple fix in the end. And obviously the boss has stayed the same, etc. So then to create the variety that's in the rest of the game, I made another weapon. So they're both available on spawn. So if the player wants to do slower but more damage, then they can use this goo launcher here. And if they wanted to do fast, rapid attacks that do lower damage, then they can do the fart gun. So obviously this one, it has changed. There is more of the delay now. And yeah, the boss does 50 damage. This is me trying to show that it does 50 damage without just dying it instantly. There you go. So yeah, it does a lot of damage, and the boss now also takes damage from the acid pools, because I had to rework the acid pool collision, because it was really big for some reason, and dealing damage to the player if they shot the acid pool, which is not what I wanted at all. So I had to fix that. So obviously the boss can die from the acid pool, and now obviously the block unlocks and you can scale the parkour and escape the map. So after that, the level was complete essentially. I added a few more things, and I also added gun sounds and a boss death sound. So it was just to wrap up all the audio for the game. And yeah, so I would say that the level is complete. It was a very quick level to design in a couple of days, but it still has enough detail to fit in with the rest of the game without seeming out of place. As you can see, it's got the pews for the guns now, so it fits in with the comedic theme of my game. That's obviously the fake floor, which is quite cool, so it still casts a shadow at the same time as well. Let's see if the boss death as well. So the boss death is the same as the player death, but it still shows that the boss has died. So, and yeah, the player grabs the key and goes for the door, collects all 10 coins if they want to, and then it takes them back to the main menu because they've finished the game. So my next step would be I plan to just walk through my game without audio, and then probably without audio, and just show the walkthrough of the game, how to finish it 100%, that show that there's like little to no bugs. I hope there's no bugs. I've been testing it for a long time now. Then make a game trailer, and then it will just be moving on to evaluating my work, etc., for the rest of the work. But yeah, overall, I faced a lot of challenges in this, but I managed, whether it was through tutorials, help from my friends, or just trial and error, which was a lot of the work really. I managed to power through all of the blueprints and make a game that I am proud of and actually works better than I thought it would. So it was obviously disappointing that we didn't have enough time to create the last level, but I feel like Radioactive is actually a very good level to have as a boss fight, especially now that I've created the monster, and he's quite a cool last boss, I think. So having that area and then keeping it within the theme. So obviously the peculiar side of Curiosity, every level is different, all the guns and everything links together, so each level is its own separate game almost. But obviously the player keeps the same game feel throughout, so it proves themselves as the parkour and combat and a mix of it all, and also exploration, because they have to actively search for the cubes and the collectibles and stuff to escape the level and find the key as well. So yeah, so that is my next step. Obviously we've been keeping up with the devlogs, so I hope you guys have enjoyed the journey, and I'll see you in the next project.